Hello and welcome. I'm Yuki. I want to talk about a feeling that has almost nothing to do with your actual life and which quite a lot of people carry around all day. The feeling of being behind. Not behind on a task, behind in general. Other people your age have got somewhere and you haven't, or you've got somewhere and it isn't where you meant to go, and it's late now. And the reassurance people offer is always some version of the same thing. It's never too late. Age is just a number. Look at all these people who started at 60. I don't think that works, and I think I know why. It's an argument, and the feeling isn't an argument, it's a measurement. And until you change what's being measured, no amount of encouragement touches it. So instead of asking whether it's too late, I'd like to ask you something else today. How long have you actually been doing it? Because that's a different number. And where I grew up, it's the only one anybody counts. Let me show you. Let's begin. I want to start with a broom, which is not where a video about ambition normally begins. In a traditional Japanese trade, the first job you are given is to sweep the floor. Not for a week. In some crafts, for a year. In a few, and this is real, not folklore, the apprentice in a sushi kitchen does not touch the fish for a very long time and spends that time washing, carrying, watching, and cleaning. I'd like you to hold on to that broom, because everything I'm going to say comes back to it. Nobody involved thinks this is a punishment, and nobody thinks the sweeper is failing. The sweeper is exactly where a person is supposed to be in their first year, which is holding a broom. The word for starting is worth knowing too, because it says something the English word doesn't. To begin studying anything here, you enter the gate, mumon. It's the ordinary word for taking up a discipline, a martial art, a tea school, calligraphy, flower arranging. You don't take it up, you go through the entrance. And the useful part is that a gate is a place. You can stand at it. There are books with the word in the title, meaning roughly for people at the gate, and nobody is embarrassed to buy one. Being at the beginning isn't a condition you're hiding. It's a location, and everybody who is now inside walked through the same spot. That leads to the thing that genuinely changed how I think about all this, and it's just a habit of counting. People are described by how long they've been doing something, not by how old they are. You'll hear someone called a third year or a fifth year in a kitchen, in a dojo, in a company, in a craft. It's the number that gets said out loud. So a woman of 52 who started 3 years ago is a third year. That's the whole of it. She isn't a 52-year-old who is late. She's a third year standing next to another third year who happens to be 24. And the two of them have exactly the same amount of it behind them. The clock starts when you start. And I cannot tell you how much of the weight comes off when the number being counted is the one you actually control. Quick pause here. I wrote the quiet reset for moments like this with simple prompts to help you choose your next step without starting your whole life over. It's the first link in the description. There's a formal version of that count, and you may already know the shape of it from martial arts. You're given a grade, and the grades never run out. You come in at the bottom and work upward through numbered levels. And then when you reach the top of those, you start again at first degree and go up through those. Even the very highest grades exist mostly as an acknowledgement of decades rather than as an arrival. What I want you to notice is that the ladder is deliberately built with no top rung you could ever stand on. That sounds discouraging, and it is the opposite. If the ladder ended, then not being at the end would be a verdict. Because it doesn't end. Your grade is only a description of where you currently are. And the person 2 grades above you is not better than you as a person. They are 2 grades above you, which is a fact with a date on it rather than a judgment. Something else supports it, and it sounds like modesty until you realize it isn't. The people who are best at something here will tell you they haven't got there. You will hear a potter of 70 say he is still learning. A man who has made knives for 50 years will tell you the good ones are ahead of him. Now, some of that is manners. We are trained to talk ourselves down, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But a great deal of it is meant literally, and you can tell because they carry on going to work. In these trades, the standard is set so far away that nobody expects to arrive, which means being short of it is not information about you. It's the condition of every single person in the room, including the master. So let me stop and say plainly what I think is actually happening. Because I think the feeling of being behind is almost entirely a measurement error. You don't feel late because you're behind. You feel late because you're being measured against your age instead of against your start date. Those are completely different numbers, and only one of them describes anything you did. Your age is a fact about the calendar. Your start date is a fact about you. And in almost every conversation you have about your own life, with other people and much more often with yourself, the wrong one is being used. If you began something 11 months ago, you are 11 months in. That is the true and complete description of where you are. It does not become a worse description because you are 46. Somebody who began at 22 and stopped at 24 has 2 years. You have 11 months. Neither of those numbers has an age attached to it, and neither one is behind because there is nothing to be behind. And the second half is the part that actually lists it. When the standard is a lifetime away, everybody is behind, so being behind stops meaning anything at all. It's the water everyone is swimming in. What's left to talk about is the only thing that was ever in your hands, which is whether you went again this week. You can watch this working in the smallest shops, and I want to give you a real one. There's a shop near my mother's house that sells one thing: tofu. It has sold tofu on that corner since before the war. The man who runs it now took it over from his father when he was 45, having done something else entirely until then. Nobody in that neighborhood thinks of him as a late starter, and nobody thinks of him as the son who came back. He is the tofu man. He is, however, many years into being the tofu man. The 45 years before that simply aren't part of the count. They aren't a deficit, and they aren't a qualification either. They're just what he was doing before he walked through the gate. You can see the same counting written on the front of buildings, and once you notice it, you see it everywhere. Old shops put their founding year on the sign, established in a particular year, painted on the cloth curtain over the door, or on a wooden board, or on the paper the sweets are wrapped in. There's a word for a shop old enough to say so, and there are lists of them. And the number on that sign is the proudest thing about the business, not the size of it, not how modern it is, not how much it sells, how long. A place that has been going for 140 years says so above the door, and a place that opened in April doesn't, and neither of those is a judgment about the people inside. It is simply the count. I think growing up walking past those signs quietly teaches you that duration is the thing worth measuring, and that everything measured that way has to start somewhere at naught. The way people encourage each other fits this too, and it took me a long time to notice the difference. What you say to a beginner isn't that they're good. It's closer to keep going, or well done for keeping at it. The praise is for the continuing, not for the quality of the thing produced. And I used to find that a bit cold, honestly. I don't anymore. Telling a beginner they're good is a compliment they know is not true, and it puts the whole conversation on the output, which at 11 months is going to be bad. Praising the continuing puts it on the only thing they can actually do anything about. My aunt took up a stringed instrument at 58 and was dreadful for about 4 years, and every single person around her said the same thing to her, which was that she was still going. There's a public version of it as well, and it's my favorite part. The small local exhibitions, a community hall once a year, with the work of a class hung up on boards, calligraphy, or paintings or photographs. And what's hanging there is the work of a 40th year and the work of a first year in the same room with the years written next to the names, not sorted into good and bad, sorted by how long. So a beginner's piece is not a bad piece of work. It's a first year piece of work, which is a completely different thing to be. And everyone walking past reads it that way. Now I have to be honest with you, and this caveat is bigger than usual, because Japan is genuinely bad at the thing you might now be imagining. This is one of the hardest countries in the developed world in which to actually start again. Age limits in job advertisements were normal here until relatively recently, and the attitude behind them has not gone anywhere. Big companies hire in a single cohort straight out of university. And if you step off that track, to raise a child, to care for a parent, to try something else, it is very hard to step back on at the same level. And for women, it is harder still. Plenty of people here are trapped in work they don't want precisely because starting over is not realistic. So please don't hear me saying that Japan lets people begin again. It very often doesn't. What it has is something much narrower, and it's the part worth borrowing. Inside a craft, a class, a discipline, anywhere with a gate, slowness is not treated as failure, and the count starts when you arrive. That's a way of measuring, not a way of organizing a country. And you can adopt a way of measuring on your own this afternoon without anybody's permission. Let me lay it out simply then. The things that make you feel late are these. You are measured against your age rather than against your start date. The standard you're aiming at is described as reachable, so falling short of it seems to be about you. Praise goes to the output rather than to the continuing. Beginner's work is judged as bad work instead of as early work. And there is no word in your language that makes beginning a respectable place to be standing. And the things that lift it are only ways of counting. Knowing what year you are in and saying it out loud, standing next to someone else in the same year and noticing that their age is irrelevant, setting the standard far enough away that nobody has arrived, including the people you admire, being praised for going again rather than for being good, and hanging your first year work next to somebody's 40th year work with the years written down so that it reads as what it is. If you take one question with you, take the one from the beginning. How long have you actually been doing it? If the answer is a small number, then you are not behind. You are early, which is a completely different place to be standing. And the only thing anybody can honestly ask of you is whether you'll go again next week. Which brings me back to that broom and the year of sweeping and the very young person holding it who is not allowed anywhere near the fish. Nobody in that kitchen thinks they are wasting their time. Nobody thinks they've fallen behind. They are a first year, and a first year sweeps, and in 4 years, they will be a fifth year, and that is the entire system. You don't need a gate, and you certainly don't need a broom. You need to know what year you're in. And if you started this spring, then whatever you are not late. You're in your first year. Say that instead. If this helped you see your own first year differently, subscribe so we can keep making room for second chances together. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.